Hello, my friends. John LaRuffa here with another Straight Up Solo. And in this episode, we are going to take a look at Nucleum Court of Progress. And I'm also going to go through that mini expansion too that has the personas. So, for instance, like these cards right here. All right. So, let's go ahead and take a look. Okay, folks. And as usual, please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't done already. If you have, I really do appreciate that support. Thank you very much. So I have recently finished up this game, and you can see here that it is basically in its final state. And I was playing with the E experiment over here and the Court of Progress. And then I've got the Australian map, which is part of the Australian expansion, or Australia expansion from earlier. I did use the banker for the AI, and I use the counselor because the counselor goes through or for with the E experiments. Okay, and so these guys are from the patron set, and basically what they do is on the AI side they give you a specific variance in the setup, like this. It says set up the buildings, for instance, like this instead of the normal way. And then there's an ongoing ability that kicks in after the first king scoring. That will always be a present there. For you, the only thing you do is a one-time ability. In this case, once in the game, I can spend up to 11 coins to get a maximum of 10 points. Okay? And, I'm sorry, the other way around. So I can spend up to a maximum of 10 points to get up to 9 coins. Pardon me on that one. Okay? And so the reality is that you have basically a one-time ability with this and a slight variation with this on how it plays. So those are very minor things, and that is part of that patrons expansion. It's a very small thing. I think it's called patrons. But let's talk specifically about this Court of Progress. So the first thing you get with the Court of Progress is 2 additional sets of experiments. And what I'm going to say about these experiments is that they are a little bit different than what you get in some other ones, but they have a lot of reoccurring themes. So for instance, in this experiment in E, you got Nucleum, you got an extra Nucleum every time you built a mine or built a turbine. Here, this was a little bit different. You saved $1 when you had to go on a penalty spot. Instead of a -2, you'd only have to pay -1. This one lets you gain a coin and an extra power every time you use somebody else's turbine. This is a one-time use of 4 coins and 4 stars. This would be 2 guys and also a Court of Progress action. This would be if you place a contract, you get to do 2 different rewards, not just the one. This is every time you do a patron action, you either get 1 guy or you take 2 contracts. I think that's what that means. And then this is depending on how many politicians, you have over here on the patron side, you get extra points. Now, the F experiments are different. I don't have it shown here, but they're nothing, I would say, mind-bogglingly different than what you've already seen in the experiments. So they modify the rules a little bit and change a little bit here and there. But for the most part, they play it pretty close to the vest, okay? In regards to the biggest change of this expansion is this politicians board, this political board. So what you have here is you have 4 spaces, and each of those spaces, when you place or when you take an action that shows this coat of arms over here, like you can see, the whole thing is you take one of your available workers and you put it into one of these 4 areas. You immediately get the bonus of placing, for instance, 2 progress points for the stars and a move on the point track, or 2 points and a move on the worker track, or I get to take one of these tiles over here for free, or I get 2 coins and I move one on the income. And then depending on who is the leader, when it's time to do a king scoring, the leader will get a specific point bonus based on a condition. In this case, you get 2 points for each different type of guild you have a person in, or not guild, but political party. Or here it's different. This would be I can't remember what the economics are or the icons here, but each of these are different. Okay. Um, and so there's some extra things, extra ways to score, extra ways to improve your economy or your capabilities, or etc. And the scoring point side is actually pretty strong. So in order to counteract this, they actually move on the Australia map the award for getting points from 75 all the, or I think it's from 70 all the way to 95. Okay, Australia goes up to 75 as it is. So this really bumps it up because you're going to get a lot more points because you have two of these scoring rounds, not just one, when you're awarding the king scoring. Okay, so that changes the dynamic. But what really changes the dynamic is you are going to be highly constrained in workers the more you participate over here, because you are devoting workers instead of building your network. Now you're devoting them to the political side of things. And that is going to change the way this game feels a lot. And what that really does is it seems to tighten up the map, at least on the feel that I got with the Australia map, because you just don't have as many people. And trust me, I mean, I thought about that going in. So I'm like, I really got to make sure I try to get my worker track up. But the most workers you really can ever get in a round is 5 per round, right? So even though I was able to boost it up pretty high, you're tempted to devote a lot more of your workers over here. And these workers erode in the dominance side every single time. So wherever you're dominant, they come off. And then they come off later in different spots if you're the leader. And so they're being used and not really stacking, which is fine. It's totally fine that it actually goes down. It keeps things tight over here. So nobody can get a massive lead, it feels like. But it really does change the feel of how this network builds out. And you can see my network was fairly constrained over here. All right. I only built 4 things. And chalk that up to inexperience with this expansion. You can absolutely do that, but it had a pretty profound way that I've affect on my gameplay, and also so I built 8 things in total, but you can definitely tell it was much smaller than normal. Okay, the AI is pretty competitive in putting guys out here like usual, and is still very competitive in the scoring game. So it doesn't really change that. It does not really, I would say, make the game easier or harder for you in regards to how the AI interacts with the expansion, because they do place guys on the Court of Progress, and they do so in a way to basically win the leader spot in any given case, and they get a reward, a modified reward from what what you would normally do over here. So they interact pretty well there. And so that's what you're getting. You're getting some experiments that are similar but a little different, but very, I would say, similar in feel from A to D with E and F. But what's really different is this effect that you have with regards to moving your resources from board placement and expanding network over here. So let me tell you what I think about it. So with this Court of Progress, the solo game seems like it was pretty profoundly affected, I would say, because I felt like I was really tightening up my network by putting things into these areas that I just could not afford to ignore. And you can't afford to ignore them because the AI will go there and they will score in those leader areas if you do not put up a fight. And so it effectively changes the feel and dynamic of the game from being very sprawling to really tightening up a map. Artificially so, but still doing so. And I'm not sure I like that or not, to be honest. Unlike most expansions where you buy some, you get the expansion and adds some additional element to the game, another thing to deal with, another resource. What this does is it takes an existing very tight resource, i.e. your workers, and then splits your focus with them to go to something completely different that you cannot ignore if you're playing with it, which is very interesting. And I would say usually you feel like when you got another expansion, you got some bloat, like, oh, just bolt on this and bolt on that. And this is more like a divergent stuff. You're going to take this scarcity, which I think is the most scarce thing in the game, which is the workers. And you're going to now divert that and split that effort. And that is an interesting feeling, and I just don't know how I feel about it. And it's really weird for me to say that because usually I'm really able to make up my mind, but it made the game feel so different that I feel like I need more time. And I don't want to stall the review out anymore, but I need more time. I need many more games of this under my belt with both maps to really know, yeah, this is something I like, or I kind of like it more free-flowing like I used to have it before. Now, you can play any experiments with this or without, and you can also play the experiment F without the Court of Progress at all, without the politicians, etc. So you don't have to use that with this module. You definitely have to use it with the experiment E because there are two things in here that are specifically related to that. So if you didn't have it, it wouldn't make any sense. And so I guess my review on this one is a little bit mixed. I love the base game. I absolutely love the base game. I think it's a solid 10. But if I had to look at this expansion and what it does to it, I get the feeling that it is going to take some serious getting used to, and it is not an easy, oh my gosh, if you love this, you'll love this even more. It is just going to be different because it diverts a scarce resource and splits it into two. The patron set with these cards, I don't know. Honestly, luckily it was cheap, but I feel like there was no reason that should have been released by itself. It should have just been thrown into the other expansion, and they should have raised the price of the expansion $2 or something like that, because there's really not a whole lot there. The one-time use for your own character things is not a game changer at all. It gives you one use, okay? And I shouldn't say, I'm sure you can use it strategically and everything else, but I don't really get excited about a single-use power, okay? That's just my opinion. It's a little bit more impactful in the way it changes the flavor of the solo bot, so I like that a lot more. But if you're not a solo player, and then why are you watching the channel? But if you're not a solo player, I don't think these one-time cards are really going to get you excited. I mean, because they're also coupled with the experiment that they go with, so you really can't mix and match very well. So it's just like one more small thing. It almost seems like it just took one single thing and added it to the experiment with an okay effect, but nothing that I would get extremely excited about. The ongoing effect of the bot that it changes does make things different, but it also introduces a little bit of, I don't know if it's ambiguity, or at least in my mind, it sort of did. So with this one, so it basically said every time it urbanizes, it could do so for free, and it doesn't have to obey its network. Okay, so that means it's able to build all over the place, wherever it wants, every time. So is that a good thing or not? Because if it, does it build in nonsensical ways like that because it's not constrained? I don't know. And because all of the rules and such are in the base game or in the Australian expansion don't address that, it's kind of left for you to interpret. Now, maybe someone else knows that answer, but I felt it was kind of like, oh, it's sort of splitting the efforts of the bot to do different things, and that may not really be in its best interest. Not that it didn't clobber me anyway. I really felt like this was probably one of my lowest scoring games that I just finished up here because the game was so different. I was really kind of like hit over the head with the amount of changes and just could not really get the effect that I wanted. I found that I was split so thinly. It made it a full different feel. So I guess when it comes down to it, this is not an easy expansion to recommend, because I don't know if I like the way it changes the resources in the game or not. It's not a bad expansion. It's not a useless expansion. It just really modifies the game in a way that's tough for me to know if I like at this point. So anyway, that's my mixed review. I don't like to usually do those things, but I'm on the fence, as I've never been on the fence with a situation here. So I just wanted to provide it to you. Didn't want to wait too long. Sorry for the delay. So thanks so much, everybody, for watching. I really appreciate it. Whatever you do in the future, I really, really hope you have a fantastic time doing it. Take it easy.